Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the work session for the Cuyahoga County Council for Tuesday, April 23rd. And it's now 4 o'clock. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Rogers.
Here.
Ms. Simon.
Here. She
Here.
just walked in the door.
Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
And Ms. Conley.
Here.
Everyone is here.
Today we have a presentation on for an update for the County Administration Complex, and I'd like to call on Mr. Applebaum. Are you going to start?
Yes.
Okay. Come on up.
I'm going to bring Steve Zanoni with me in case there's some of the questions you might ask. Steve and I are
Mr.
doing this
Applebaum, you are
together.
never at a loss for words. So.
Because I always have this thing in my ear that Mr. No.
And we're all looking. I'm looking forward to seeing you Saturday night.
Well,
Are you going to wear tights? Do you have green tights?
do we have to do this in public?
No.
All I can say is think Robin Hood, and other than that, you'll
Okay.
find out.
It will be in public, though.
That's right. We were asked. Thank you. We were asked to look into some very specific.
Why don't you state for the record your role so that it's
I'm
clear?
sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. So because I have different ones. Jeff Applebaum with Project Management Consultants. Steve Zanoni, my partner at Project Management Consultants. And we are here today in our role as the monitoring and oversight consultant on behalf of the county with respect to the new headquarters project. And in that capacity, and I missed the last work session, but we were asked to look into certain issues with respect to the bridge between the parking structure and the new headquarters building. And specifically, questions have arisen as to what would be the cost and impact of removing the bridge as opposed to leaving it there. So what I'm going to talk about right now, I'm not going to get into the policy consideration as to whether there should or should not be a bridge. I mean, that's a different policy. I'm strictly going to talk about if a determination was made to remove the bridge, what would it entail, what would the schedule impact be, what would the cost impact be, and what would the other potential impacts be. So that's what I've been asked to address. So Steve and I have done the due diligence to look into this question.
And could I just interrupt to make it clear
Yes.
that there is no motion, ordinance, there's no formal request to make any changes. There have been people who come and express their opinions, to keep or to stay, but we're asking you to do exactly what you've mentioned, just to give us the information.
Right. This is just more information, and we're not here to make any recommendation other than to give you additional facts for your purposes. Okay. So in that regard, we have gone through and we have done our due diligence, including looking at contract documents, talking directly with guys, looking at construction schedules, looking at construction costs. And here's what we can report to you. First of all, with respect to schedule. If the county was to decide by the end of April to have the parking bridge removed, it would be a delay to the project of approximately 2 to 3 months. And here's the reason why there would be a delay. The demolition documents, demolition is already proceeding. There are demolition documents that have been prepared, approved. There's the permitting process has been completed. And what would have to happen is you'd have to stop that process, because in that process, the bridge demolition is not part of that process. You would have to now go through a different process. You'd have to get a permit that includes demolition of the bridge. It would have to so you'd have to go through, create the demo documents for that, get the permit that permits that to occur. And there would be a delay associated with doing that because demolition is going on right now. There would have to be reprogramming of the tenant improvements. Right now, keep in mind where we are. The design development documents for the core and shell has been completed. We've completed the schematic design for the tenant improvements, but at this point in time, you'd have to reprogram that, because obviously, if you didn't have the bridge entering under the fourth floor, the functions that you have where that bridge comes in, the way that you have the fourth floor designed, wouldn't make sense anymore. So you'd have to go through a reprogramming exercise with respect to the TI, and there would be an impact there. So we would have some delay to the project. Guesstimates right now that it would be in the 2 to 3 month range, and we don't think we think it's probably, there would be an impact. In terms of costs, there are a couple types of costs here. Number one, your demolition costs. Taking down that bridge, because of the way it has to be braced to come down, there's an expense involved in taking the bridge down. That was estimated by Geis to be $500,000 at a time when the consideration would have been taking it down as part of the base demolition. Well, now that the demolition work has commenced, you would have to now modify your demolition plan, and the cost would definitely go up, because instead of doing it as part of the initial plan, now you have to come back and add this component to the plan, so there'd be some premium, whether it's 10 to 15%, but it would be in excess of $500,000. You would have a reprogramming cost, because we have to go back through and reprogram the TI, the tenant improvement, and that cost would probably be in the vicinity of $20,000 to $30,000 to go back and go through a reprogramming exercise in the building. And then you have a delay cost, and the delay cost would be, once again, we're paying rent, or the county's paying rent from a period of time, and if the project is delayed, you're still paying rent for those months. So you're paying rent at the rate of $150,000 a month. So if it's delayed by 2 months, it's really $300,000, let's say, of rent for a building that you're not using yet. So it's rent for which you're getting no benefit. If it's 1 month, it's $150,000. If it's 2 months, it's $300,000. So you can look at all those numbers, and those add up. You'd have your $500,000 plus 10 to 15%, your reprogramming costs, your delay to the project. But in addition to that, there are some other impacts or costs that have to be considered. One of them is, keep in mind, we don't own the bridge. Geis owns the bridge. So you'd have to go through reopening and renegotiating the lease. And I can't tell you what that might mean, because when you renegotiate a lease and ask for things, you're renegotiating a lease. Other issues could come up. Second of all, it is likely to be the case, and I don't want to negotiate this in public, but it's likely to be the case. Let me say it this way. If I was Geis, I would say that I own that bridge. That's something of value I have. If you want me to demolish my bridge, you are lessening the value of something I own. So you would likely be in a position where Geis would argue that they want to be compensated for the removal or demolition of property that they own, and have a benefit or a potential benefit from having that property. So you have those issues. The third issue, which I'm not going to personally get into, but it's a consideration that comes up with respect to the building, and that is the consideration of accessibility. One of the important issues about having that bridge is the fact that you can have parking, disabled parking close to that bridge on the fourth floor, so people with disabilities can go directly from the fourth floor and the bridge, come right across the bridge to council meetings or to other important functions in the building. So accessibility is a very important factor for the bridge being there. And I'm not going to speak to the accessibility issue. That's more of the policy issue. But I understand that during the public comment section here, there's various individuals that do want to speak to the issue of accessibility. So I won't comment on that other than to say that those folks have asked to come here today. As I understand it, they're going to be talking about sort of the countervailing policy issue on the bridge, which is accessibility, which is something else that I think is a consideration. But at this point in time, at least on the bridge issues, I think that fairly summarizes the investigation that we have done that you've asked us to do.
Mr. Brady?
Yes. As I understand it, we hired you to work for us, right?
That's correct.
The council, the county council.
That's correct.
Okay. If we are forced to keep the bridge, and that would be a minority opinion. If we are forced to keep the bridge, what is the cost of keeping the bridge, fixing the bridge up, and maintaining the bridge over the lifetime period of the lease?
I can answer the question this way. We previously made some recommendations as to what we think would be a legitimate, reasonable cost to keep the bridge. So, as you may recall, there are certain improvements that we are entitled to under the agreement, and then we made a series of recommendations that we thought would be basically good common sense as to what you would do, and those recommendations had to do with improving the ceiling, improving the lighting, improving the handrail, and my recollection is that the cost of those improvements was about $130,000. Now, there was one other issue that I'll be somewhat agnostic on, which is if you wanted to add air conditioning, I believe that was $30,000. I think that's one you could come back to and look at, because the real truth of that is knowing more about what the true condition of the air would be, and I don't think we had enough information to positively know about that. But it's 130, I believe, was the number. We could go back and look at what we presented, plus, and depending on whether you also wanted to add the air conditioning, which is optional. In terms of maintaining the bridge, and one question, I don't believe that there would be a under the agreement, and perhaps Majid, you can help me out.
That is the
with
guy's
that.
obligation under the lease to maintain.
Pardon?
That is the guy's obligation under the lease to maintain.
I'm sorry, still.
That is a landlord obligation.
I
under the
believe
lease.
it is a lender obligation.
No, it absolutely is section 5.2C.
Right, and I just don't know of any other, and it would be also their obligation to take care of maintenance, capital repair, et cetera. So I don't think there would be any other obligation.
So, thank you. So the very publicly minded Geis company, when they would enter into us for a renegotiated lease under this hypothetical, would also have something to gain by not maintaining the bridge for 26 years, correct?
They would have something to gain by not maintaining the bridge for 26 years. That's
Thank
true.
you.
That's another, it's not a cost to us, but it's a benefit. It would be a benefit to somebody else.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
If this were and again, you're working for us, right?
So far.
As of the moment. So we're building the Applebaum International headquarters. And this is the bridge going into the International Applebaum headquarters. It's a Class A, beautiful new building. Does the chairman of the board want a $130,000 bridge going into the Applebaum International headquarters, or does he want that $700,000 bridge going into the Applebaum International headquarters?
Does the chairman have to pay for it or not?
Well, it's there, and it looks like hell, and it's going into your international headquarters. So what do? Do we put railings in? Do we spray paint it? Do we not redo the glass? Do we not put panels on it? In essence, what I'm getting at, are we going to cheap out again? The history of the city, the history of the county, unfortunately, is it always cheaps out.
My response to that, and I'm going to ask, because when I have my headquarters, I always do hire an architect to help me. But our view of it was that the reasonable proposition was to go that 130 route. We didn't think it was necessary to spend more, because we did think that the fundamental bridge itself, assuming we keep the bridge, we thought that the bones of the bridge were good. We thought that, and once again, keep in mind what the proposal here is, that we're going to mock it up. We're going to take a section of it. We're going to see when it's cleaned up, when it has this high performance paint and all this work is done, we'll mock it up, we'll look at it. If after that we still think, or if you look at it still think it's a problem, we can always spend more money, but we thought the reasonable judgment was to spend, assuming that you're keeping it, to spend the 130, make those improvements,
Assuming
mock it
you're
up and
gonna
look at
keep
it.
it.
Pardon?
Assuming you're going to keep it.
So, excuse me?
Assuming the Applebaum International chairman's going to keep it.
Assu-
See, my thing is what you would have done
Yes.
is this would have all been taken care of at the front end. And you wouldn't have had a problem because there would have been a decision made on that. And this gets sprung on us, the pedals to the metal, things are happening quickly. We have an 8-story building. We've only seen 3 stories of that as far as the fit, which looks like sardines in a can. And now we have this bridge issue. What I'm looking for is, and you're telling me, where did this go wrong? Where did this jump the tracks? Did we move too quickly on this? Did we not have the right people negotiating this for us? And quite honestly, somebody here is going to be embarrassed, and I don't want it to be me, because I'm getting close to the point of wanting to wash my hands of this. Things are going too quickly. We're locked into a lease. You know, you were saying things. Your number 2 scenario. Well, if they couldn't use that, well, if we cut off access, number 2's gone. There's something not right here, and I'm very uncomfortable going forward. And we've had these discussions privately, so I'm raising them publicly. What's going on here?
Well, let me respond this way. First of all, we obviously, neither of us can talk about anything that occurred prior to the time that you retained us to look at this, so we can't go back. We have looked at this issue to figure out what we think is workable on the bridge. The other issue you raised, we've also looked at that issue, by the way, which is the issue of expansion, or what you refer to as sardines. And Steve can speak to that a little bit, by the way. Maybe we should do that. So, you know, I think that, you know, there is a process here, and I think that we are looking at the process and making sure that the process works. I really can't go back because I'm not, we don't know, and we weren't part of historically what occurred.
What would you advise me to do to find out whose head should be on the chopping block? And maybe it's ours. Maybe we jumped quickly. But things are happening here and they're spinning. They're going real quick. The bridge jumped out of nowhere. We all understand that. We didn't see that coming. My thing is, who should have saw that coming for us? And you weren't on board, and I'm guessing you would have saw that.
I don't know. I can't answer what, you know. The issue is the project is a fast project. There is a lot of quick decisions, but that can work if you have your team. And I think right now you have a lot of people who are working very carefully together. They're communicating very well. I think they're going through the process of getting these decisions made. So I'm hopeful that this all will work, and I think you can have a very good project here. But is it fast? Absolutely, it's fast.
Mr. Miller, do you want to respond?
Well, I mean, what we were prepared, this is the other topic you asked about, which is the density of the project and the size. So if you want to get into that, we can talk about that. I didn't know if you want to do that now or not.
Well, I don't know if it's what I want. It's what,
Yeah, let's go with the other question. Mr. Miller?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just have one other question related to the cost of keeping the bridge, and that's the question of whether you would confirm that keeping the bridge would require us to maintain an extra security point, and that to staff that extra security point over the life of the lease. I've heard $1 million if you got to staff it with one person, or $2 million if you got to staff it with 2 people. And the question is, will keeping the bridge require additional security staff, and what do you estimate the cost of that would be?
Well, let me make two comments about that. Number one, my understanding, and I could be corrected on this because we're not looking right now at all the operational issues, but that bridge is basically open during the week, during business hours. So it opens up at the beginning of the business day. It closes, and, it's not going to be like open 24/7. It'll close whatever the end of the business day is. I'm not sure if that's 5:30 or 6 or whenever that is, but it'll be closed. So it's limited to security, which is at that entryway to your building simply during business hours. And it's also not open on weekends unless there's a special reason to have it opened. So it's not a 24/7 security. It basically involves whatever security you would otherwise have at one entrance to your building. I can't tell you the cost of that. We could certainly go back and identify that for you. I don't know the cost of that security individual right now as I stand here.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Can I?
I'm sorry.
I would like to just comment on the design piece, because right now, as Jeff said, if you do eliminate the bridge, you have to reprogram the building. Presently, your present county headquarters building does have 2 security stations, as you know, because you have 2 entrances. And the question would be, and I couldn't answer this, is what would be the flow through if everyone's coming in at street? So you may wind up still having 2 security officers or 2 security stations just to get enough people through, compared to, because you will just have a lot more people, and particularly when you have council meetings and things of that nature. So the question would be is, yes, you would get rid of that security station, but it could possibly, depending on the flow through, be then positioned now in the main lobby on the first floor.
Excuse me, could you state your name and your
Oh, yes.
affiliation
I'm
for the record?
Steve Zanoni, and I'm a director of project management consultants, and I've worked with Jeff for 14 years now.
So, Madam Chair, to both Jeff and Steve, so what you're saying is that it's not clear that getting rid of the bridge would necessarily reduce the amount of security stations that would be required for the operation. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Mr. Shrine?
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, to Mr. Miller's point, I just came through an airport yesterday, and I did notice that the security points flowed depending on the volume of activity. So there were 6 open ports, of which 3 were allowing it to flow at the time I was going through, and I'm sure that during busy times you're going to have those security points open. I mean, this building alone, when you come through the tunnel, has a security point that's open during working hours, and when the tunnel is closed, there's nobody sitting there. So my assumption is, as Mr. Miller points out, that won't change the need. It's just going to change the times when they're on there, and my assumption is that that's going to change and flow up and down. But I do have to find some challenges with my colleagues when they say that we were surprised. The drawings I saw and that we all looked at during the entire process always showed that bridge in place, that every single one of us sat here during the original discussion phases when we looked at the various different forms, the various different iterations, when we went down from multiple, down to 4, down to ultimately down to the final recommendation. So that bridge existed. The looks of what that bridge looks like. Having had an old car, I carried it into the car shop in baskets. It won a championship. Now, granted, I put some money into it, but the recommendations of what it looks like on the outside, as far as the metal, the paint, being able to be painted up and be in a condition, there is old metal that can be repainted and looks, it can made be look nice, and that's what we were told we were going to have as far as the looks and the appearance, and it was going to look and blend like what we have. So I don't think that any of us can sit here and say that we didn't see that there was a bridge that was going to be there, and that we were going to have it fixed up and it was going to be painted and blended to the condition of the existing building. So what we do on the inside, whether we drop a ceiling, whether we put more cosmetically attractive rails or anything of that nature, I understand that that's stuff that we can make a decision on, but it's not $130,000 we're putting into it. We're putting all the money that's already programmed into that original bridge that we saw that was originally drawn and fixed up. So to say it's 130, it's not what I believe the numbers are. That's just the additional suggestions.
Additional
That is not what it's going to cost to fix that bridge.
To clarify my point, when we saw the mock-up of the building, we saw a beautiful bridge with reglazed windows, new roof. It looked beautiful. And that was at zero cost to us. And then we found out, and I was sitting in a meeting with you, Jack, and I'm a little surprised. No new carpeting, no new railing, no new anything. It was going to look like it looks now with a little bit of touch-up and no new glass. And what we're going to get for $130,000 is a little bit of touch-up. We pushed for the carpeting. I couldn't believe that that was even an issue. That wasn't even on the board. They're going to leave the carpeting the way it was. And I've been on that bridge, and that carpeting's torn up, and it looks like what it looks like, which is going to be replaced now. I think Geis was even a little embarrassed when that was brought up because they had their heels dug in. Now I'm surprised that it's costing us $130,000, and I was even more surprised to fix it up the right way, as they said, was $700,000. The $130,000 number's coming out of our people here. And so to see that bridge, the way they presented that bridge, it was with, in my opinion, new glazing, new metal, new everything. And then when we finally got to the table, what are you going to do to the bridge? The answer was nothing. It is what it is. So that has completely changed. I'm completely surprised. That was completely popped upon us. And I didn't expect us to be the ones to find that. I expected our people to find that. And I'm surprised that whoever the people are that were watching out for us allowed us to see a brand new bridge, and then in reality we had nothing. We had a junky bridge attached to a building. So yes, I was surprised. I'm still surprised, and I'm not very pleased with where we're at right now, talking about a bridge that we are going to pay to fix up.
Chairperson.
Mr. Brady?
Yes. I remember being in a meeting where, well, first of all, I remember being in several meetings where the council was told, because they asked, will we have input into the design, the exterior design of the building? I assumed, maybe others didn't, that the exterior design of the building included the bridge. It seemed to me to be part of the exterior design of the building. We had a meeting where there were four councilmen in the meeting. Talking to people from Geis and URS about this. And we discussed this bridge before the contracts were signed. And three of the four councilmen in the meeting at that day said they were either opposed to this bridge or had serious issues about this bridge. And those were not, as far as I can see, taken seriously at all. The next thing we know, we're told we've got 48 hours to make a decision. So the councilman asked, who's to blame? Now, our job is to figure out how to solve problems. But I have to say, because this has been discussed much more than it should have and could have been resolved much more easily early on than it will be. But I have to say that I believe that the consultants, URS, while they did a good job on almost everything else, so I have a difficult time saying this, but I can't seem to get anybody to hear it. They failed the county council and the administration in terms of this issue of the bridge. That's my opinion. They failed us. They didn't give us enough time, they didn't give us the proper information, and they failed us. And they were paid a lot of money to do it.
Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry. I wrote you down. I forgot.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. All right. So I'm trying to take a step back here it reminds me, and I've made this statement before in another scenario. You know, we're kind of in the environment now. What, so what, now what? All right. We've missed the deadline to effectively, if this body wanted to, take down the bridge without penalty. Correct? So.
That's correct.
Okay, and I believe Councilman Brady said we were given a 48-hour window if that decision was to be made without penalty for that to happen, and that was about a month ago, if I recall. So where are we now? I mean, is this body, I'm not aware there's a motion pending or before us or coming down the road to tear down the bridge. So I guess my challenge is, what's the discussion about now? Is the discussion, are we going to spend $135,000 or $700,000 to do any modifications or somewhere in between? And what's the deadline for that? What is the deadline if we wanted to do any modifications to the plan that's submitted? Mr. Applebaum, what's the timeline for that?
As I understand it, this is the situation that is before you. So, you know, you have the contract that says what it says, and you have the situation that is what it is. So right now, the project proceeds with demolition that keeps the bridge intact. There is no immediate, because the activities we're talking about, you know, the bridge restoration activities, that is not going to occur immediately because you have to get through the demolition of the project, and so you are a few months away from implementing those steps. The part of the bridge restoration that's part of the base contract has already been decided. The treatment on the outside, which is to say to do the custom painting, to do the mock-up, that'll be on the schedule, but that's several months away yet. The decision of the interior choices that we laid out is a decision that is, I suspect it's still a few months away. We can get you the exact timeline for when that has to be made, but that is not an immediate decision. So right now, the project is proceeding down the path of keeping the bridge. In order to change that decision, which would be to take down the bridge, you'd essentially have to go back and actually renegotiate the agreement. That would have the impacts we've talked about. You'd have to do it, and obviously if you're going to do it, the sooner you do it, the less impact there would be. But that would be a very impactful decision, and that would take someone's direction. Right now, there's no motion or anything that I understand it that's before you on that. These are the facts about that. The only real decision, unless you do something, want to take a dramatic action, the real decision that is still before you is whether you want to enhance the bridge. And that's not something you have to do now, and we'll get back to you with the exact timing for when that is.
All right, Mr. Germana? I'm sorry, you finished?
That's, yeah, just let me continue if I can. So the debate before us, and I believe that the support is to keep the bridge up. The question comes to the aesthetics of what the, I'm sorry?
Well, frankly, there is no debate on that at this point.
Right.
We would have to introduce an ordinance to go in and change the contract that we authorize the executive to sign.
Right, and that's where I was going.
Okay.
Right now, we are in a position where the bridge is not in jeopardy or not in discussion to come down. I believe that the only discussion before this body, I understand it's a passionate discussion, and we've been at it for 35 minutes, is regarding the aesthetics and the functional use of.
And technically, Mr. Greenspan, that is not before this council at this. This is an informational,
right.
And as Mr. Applebaum pointed out, we're down the line as to whether we want to spend nothing, 130, or what's the high figure, 900,000 or something.
Right. So the bridge is in play, meaning it's not in jeopardy of anything other than a discussion on possible aesthetic changes to it. That's the whole basis of the discussion where
That's
we are
correct.
right now. Okay, just wanted to make sure we were all clear on that. Okay.
Yeah, because we asked Mr. Applebaum to come in as a result of some very impassioned people who came in and spent a great deal of time, and I appreciate their civic concern, and they have some opinions about taking the bridge down. We listened to their comments, but as I've said a number of times, there is nothing procedurally before us today that could allow us to vote that, and we'd have to introduce an ordinance to direct the executive to renegotiate the contract, which would then fall into play all of the items that Mr. Applebaum pointed out, the collateral damage, I guess you call it, or the collateral consequences, rather, of that. Mr. Germano, did you have a comment?
Well, Madam Chair, thank you. I don't want to delay this any further, but, I always was for this bridge. This idea about extra security. If we've got all these pedestrians walking to East 9th there, I come down four times, at least 4 times a week, sometimes twice on the same day, and I come Ontario. And we have the traffic. There's practically always a traffic cop there because of the casino. So, if the bridge came down, how would this affect traffic coming into downtown Cleveland? So that's one point. The second point is, the people I represent, they want to come down and want to do business with the county. They should be able to come down, find a parking spot convenient, and do their business. I don't want to force them to have to come down, spend money, buy coffee, shop in order to do business with the county. So, my position is, let's keep. Well, we're keeping the bridge. The bridge is there. Let's move forward. I'm disappointed. Like Mr. Gallagher says, we had this vision that, with this building, we're going to have a nice-looking bridge. I'm hopeful that the $130,000 fix that you've recommended is going to be adequate. I'm for that. That's what we need, is adequate. If it looks bad, we're going to have to do whatever necessary to not detract from the total building. So that is pretty much.
Thank you. I understand that there are people that are very much concerned about the foot traffic, and I'd just like to reiterate, and think other people have said that, and we said it again. By virtue of this building being in this area, there's going to be a tremendous amount of foot traffic. Everyone who comes to this building will not park in this parking lot. They will be parking in surface lots around the area, so they're going to be walking around. They're going to be, maybe stopping by a cup of coffee or whatever you do. We are working with RTA to get a subsidy for RTA ridership so that more people will be taking the rapid or the buses, so that they would be walking or coming down from Public Square. We will have foot traffic after our building is closed. Our building's only open till 5 o'clock or so. So I appreciate the comments of the people who are opposed to the bridge, but I think we're going to have another side. We have some people signed in for public comment. I'd like to give them an opportunity to speak if there's no other. Mr. Germano, do you want to?
Madam Chair, there's just one other thing I forgot, and that is, the plus of this project is we've got these vacant buildings sitting there. By putting this headquarters there, the Ameritrust Towers is going to be converted to apartments and condos. So, that brings the vibrancy that the people that were anti-Skywalk were talking about, because those people need to shop, eat, and so on. So, it's a plus to downtown.
Okay, Ms. Simon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In terms of the security points and the cost of that, right now in our county administration building, we have 2 entrances where we have 2 security points. So, we already have that, so it's not something that's extraordinary. And then, we could make this bridge as nice or not as nice as we want, so I'm not even sure what the controversy is. We have a schedule of deadlines that was provided to us in March, the beginning of March, and this council can budget as much or as little as it wants to make this a Mercedes or not. So I'm not sure what the controversy is, except we all voted for this, and we're going to move forward to make it how we want it. So that's my comments.
Anything else, Mr. Applebaum?
Not for me.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else on council? All right, I believe that we had some people signed in for public comment. Or first of all, is there any miscellaneous business? Okay, and we had some folks sign in for public comment.
The first speaker is Vanessa Pesic.
Thank you. Isn't this wonderful? I love this. That's great. Thank Thank you. As she said, my name is Vanessa Pesic, and I've heard a lot of comments regarding the costs and leasing and so forth regarding the Skywalk, and I wanted to give you another perspective. I'm here on behalf of the committee, your committee, the Cuyahoga County Advisory Committee on Persons with Disabilities, and we have been in existence for 30 years within the county, and we advocate on behalf of the county for people with disabilities in areas of building accessibility, transportation, and communications, and so forth. And the Accessibility Subcommittee, we've been reviewing buildings and projects for decades, including renovations, new construction, as well as all of your leased buildings, to ensure that people with disabilities have full access. So we've been involved with projects like courtroom renovations in the Marion building, remodeling these council chambers, the Virgil Brown building when it was originally constructed, the Juvenile Justice Center, the Medical Mart, Progressive Field, Gun Field, the Brown Stadium, Allen Theater, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we've done a number of projects, and what we do is that we follow not just the ADA, but universal design, and which that means that we look at the needs of all people, of all ages, sizes, and abilities, and we design the built environment to best suit everyone's needs. And so we applaud the City of Cleveland and numerous nonprofit organizations' efforts to build better parks, pedestrian amenities, street-friendly areas, bike lanes, and green infrastructure. And I was born here just east of Cleveland, and I want nothing more than to make Cleveland enjoy a renaissance and be a livable, inviting urban environment. Sometimes, though, the street-friendly initiative needs to be tempered with reality. 18% of Ohioans have some type of long-term disability. 18%, that's rather large. With this lens, our subcommittee, your subcommittee, is in the process of reviewing the new administrative complex. It's a public building that will bring many people into the county for business and functions. 18% of those people may be disabled. And in addition to that, Cuyahoga County employees may also have a disability, as you, the county, has been a strong advocate for employment of people with disabilities. So why would people with disabilities need to use a skywalk rather than using the street? First, the weather. It's Cleveland and there's snow. The streets are plowed first, and then sometimes the sidewalks, and then occasionally the curb cuts. And additionally, the bottom of the curb cuts can pool water, which freezes. Wheelchair wheels can slide on the ice. We can't stop, and then we move right into the street. People who use walkers and canes are much more likely to slip and fall. Those with significant lung heart issues.
If you could wind up,
with sensitivity to the cold, find it very difficult. Rain's a problem. Weather, regardless of the weather, curb cuts can be very difficult for people to navigate, even those who are blind. So by keeping the skywalk, it allows greater participation by the entire population. And something as simple as a skywalk from the parking garage to the administration.
Okay, your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can help people conserve energy so that we can do other things in the area. So that we look forward to working with universal design and making sure that the built environment will help all of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Councilman Lynn Ruffner from Shaker Heights, and she's here in her capacity as chairman of the Disabilities Committee, right? Yes. Okay. Our next speaker?
Madam Chair, the next speaker is Jennifer Kucera.
And you have 3 minutes.
I'm really short, so hopefully you can see me.
Yeah, I think we're gonna let it down a little more. Okay.
Thank you.
That's not part of your 3 minutes.
I don't think I'll talk that long anyway. It's a little slow. Thank you. I'm also a member of the committee that Lynn and Vanessa is on. I also work at Services for Independent Living, and as a person who uses a wheelchair, I have all my life tried to be out in the public, having a job, and I would like to continue to do so as long as I am physically able to do so. I found ways around my disability to continue to work and to be a taxpayer. I just, as my own personal point of view, the Skywalk is just great. I don't have to be out in the elements. I can just shoot across the Skywalk. I don't have to worry about the wind. I mean, even coming in here today with all the construction, I had to park pretty far away, and to roll here with the wind, I nearly lost all my clothing as I am rolling into the building. So the Skywalk, again, shields me from the elements. Most of the time I am by myself. I don't have an attendant that I go with. So I need to have things as simple as humanly possible. So the Skywalk is a definite plus for me because it shields me from everything, and I can just zoom into the building and I don't have to deal with the rain and the snow. So I'm also, I guess, speaking on behalf of others with disabilities as well, just to let you know that that exists. So thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and finally, Angela Lovell.
I think you were here first.
Yes. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I did want to let you know, I'm glad you're keeping the Skywalk.
That's right.
I got here at 1:45. I did not find a parking spot until 3:15. I drove around and around, and there's about 6 parking spaces for people with disabilities around this building. And when I get out of the car, I get out on the side with the traffic. So not only am I facing the traffic coming past me while I'm getting into my chair, I'm rolling down the street against the traffic to get up the curb cut to come into the building. So I'm glad that you are keeping the Skywalk, and if you could put more of them, that would be wonderful. But I also wanted to let you know that there are some curb cuts that I went across the street to 1219 to do some business, and when I was going up, the curb cut was so steep that some man was walking and he had to come and get me because I almost flipped backwards. I don't know what the grade is supposed to be, but the one across the street is very dangerous. So I just wanted to thank you for keeping the Skywalk, and if you could make more of them or make the grades better, that would be wonderful, because I avoid downtown.
And who was the person whose van couldn't get in the building? Was there somebody that?
I use a wheelchair carrier on top of my car. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They look like turtles on top of the car, and I'm not able to use the parking garage across the street. One time I came here and I parked in the one down here, and the security guard actually had to lift up those ducts because my carrier got caught in it. So I do need 7 foot in order for my car to get into a parking garage.
Okay, so Bonnie's shaking her head. She knows that, so we'll make sure that that's available at the new building. That we have the right height. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Is anyone else signed in for public comment?
Madam Chair, no one else has signed in.
Okay, there's no issue to be voted on. There's nothing, unless there's some other comment on this issue, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn until 5 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Sure. Since it came up, I just wanted to remind the public that we do offer free parking in our Huntington Park garage. I've had a number of people over the last couple of days approach me and say, "Oh, I came down and I got a parking ticket," because there's an assumption that we do offer free parking, but you can park wherever you want. So I just want to be clear to the public that that parking is in our Huntington garage, and I understand that we have to make some accommodations there so that more vehicles can get in. Thank you.
Tickets, you got to pay it. Okay, if nothing else, we'll stand adjourned until 5 o'clock.
What'd you think about